Bonjour everyone, this is Bertrand from My Private Paris. Today I am with Olek.
Olek from My Private Paris.
Some of you may know Olek already. My Private Paris, we are a travel agency based in Paris. We are specialized in custom tours and tailored itineraries. And for the last 6 months, every Saturday, we are delivering tours across France, in Paris, but not only. And today we are in Normandy, a region to the west of Paris.
We left Paris, we're out.
We left Paris under the rain and we have an amazing blue sky. We have the sun in our face, which is just perfect because today it's all about outdoors, colors, flowers and a garden. We'll get to that in a minute. But first of all, we are in Normandy. The closest train station to come here from Paris is Vernon, V-E-R-N-O-N. It's an important name for us. And a few miles away from Vernon is the beautiful village of Giverny, which is located between the hills you can see in the background and a river which is passing by just a few yards this way. And the village of Giverny has become a very important place in the art history because it is the location chosen by a very famous painter, Claude Monet, at the middle of his life to move here with his family, with his children, and he has painted countless times his flowers, his garden, and most famously the water lilies. And so today I'm very happy to come here with Olek, who is one of our most expert guide on painting, on Monet, not on flowers though, but on the history of painting. He's really cool, and we will find out why Giverny is important, what there is to see here, and the life of Claude Monet. Is that right?
Yeah, Claude Monet, probably the painter that France had in the 19th century. Yeah, this is the painter in France. Which means with all the museums we have in Paris, at some point you will be in front of a Claude Monet. Even in the Louvre, that is not made for that, there is some Claude Monet, there is some in Orsay, of course, and Marmottan and Orangerie. It's plenty of museums covering this man who had a spectrum, a long life of 86 years, and in all that, easily more than 60 years of painting.
So he covers, when was he born?
So we're talking here about 1940. So we start the paintings of Claude Monet. The first things we have really that are in museums that matter for us is from the 60s, 1860s to 1925, 26, literally almost
so
dies painting.
60-year-long career, and he died, he was 86.
Yeah. It's a long time, and he
so there's
never
a lot to
stopped
cover
painting
today.
and he was painting all the time, and he was painting everything, and easily 40 last years they're here
in Giverny. Yeah, that's the amazing part of the amazing things we will find out today is that Claude Monet moves here, is 43 years old and stayed here for 43 years, and his inspiration was his garden. Right now we are not yet in the garden of Claude Monet. We are maybe 5-minute walk away from that. We are in the gardens of the Impressionist Museum because Claude Monet is quite considered as the father of Impressionism, and so in Giverny there's another museum dedicated to Impressionist painters. I insist on the S because it's not just about Monet, but about Impressionists of France, but also of other countries and especially of America. We will have a good section in this tour about American painters.
This place is even more American than French. Actually, this whole garden, this museum, this building behind is made because Mr. Daniel Terra, basically from Chicago, basically Spectrum, so created a museum here that was called the American Museum, the American Impressionist Museum, basically here. And it's just few years ago that this museum moved, and now and this whole garden is called the Garden of Impressionisms with an S.
Yeah.
Like there is plenty of, it inspired the whole world, and the whole garden, the whole view, basically the way it's decorated, the way it's presented, it's moments that are dedicated for the whole entire movement of Impressionists and from the whole world.
Okay. So we will start with telling you a little bit what is Impressionism, what was the context in France where he was born back then, a little bit about the early life of Claude Monet, and reach the house. We have a little bit of a walk to do, so let's get started.
Let's go.
Allez, en avant. So behind us, as we were leaving the garden, we noticed it's not just about flowers. There are also
Haystacks.
Haystacks. Haystacks is quite a frequent motif for the Impressionists, right?
And especially for Claude Monet. Yeah. There's a whole series of it, you know, like at some point of his life, Claude Monet paints with series, and of course Haystacks is one of those. So basically in many museums throughout the world, so in France, sometimes in the US, in Russia, you can find some haystacks of Claude Monet.
And there are, what, 1, 2, 3 of them here. Let's see if I can show you. We're still not pros at filming, so I hope the image will be great. So you will see 1, 2, and 3. And some apple trees also. By the way, there are signs that are saying that we are invited to pick up apples. So that's what we're going to do at some point for our lunch break. But we are walking towards the house of Claude Monet. Claude Monet, his personal life, it's in between Paris and Normandy. He was born in Paris, but his family moved to Normandy quite quickly after he was born.
Yeah, there's a family that comes a little bit of money in the family, and then they were doing good in business basically, and at some point the business went a little bit wrong, so they had to return to their basics. So they went back to the around Normandy, so Le Havre, Honfleur, and then slowly they
Le Havre, Honfleur, we're talking about
the coast.
The coast,
yeah, the coast. Now
we are
in Normandy without the sea. The other side is the sea. He moved clearly to Normandy to live, and then when he starts to get this 17, 18, 19 years old, he's getting attracted by the city again.
Yeah.
So he's
that's
going
in Paris. You have art schools, museums, where you can make money.
And he moves to paint.
So he moved to paint as a student, right? Right after he's 18, 19, something like that.
And then very quickly, there's not only friends and painting with friends, and in those schools where he's being taught painting, basically, I'm
showing the flowers while you talk.
He's meeting first big future names of Impressionism, and second, he meets a girl that will be his model for the whole beginning of his life, called Camille Doncieux, who will really quickly be pregnant and will have a son with Mr. Claude Monet.
I see. The good thing with Olek is that you don't wait for too long before we start to get into real stories.
Because that's the whole cool thing that changes his life, you know, like he's painting, he meets friends, so he's friends with 2 or 3 painters at this time, one called Basile, one called Sisley, one called Renoir, and
they go to school together.
They go to school or to those sort of, it's weird, it's called academies, or sometimes going to one famous teacher, and they're kind of going together to have like influences and be able to paint together on the same models. And then not only this, but together sometimes they take trains and they go to places. They go to Fontainebleau together to be able to put
they're friends from college.
From college,
from college,
the equivalent of friends from college. And the girl straight away appears, and they paint the girl, and they paint 1, 2, 3, and at some point Camille Doncieux becomes the part of Claude Monet's life, and actually will be the part of the world's museum's lives, because she will be painting all over the planet now.
So she's a girl from Paris. She poses for painters.
Yeah.
She accepts to pose for Monet, and voila.
And then there's a love story being born. A love story that the father of Claude Monet is not a big fan of. There's a moment
because it's important to say that Monet comes from quite a classical bourgeois conservative family.
Yeah.
And getting a girl pregnant back then in the 1860s.
Without the wedding, they're not married at the beginning.
She's not from the same social class. So the Monet Monet's father is not so happy about it.
So there's the family still supports, he's still around, and then sometimes there is always women of the family, an auntie that will just supply money, because of course the idea is as soon as she's pregnant the father starts cutting supplies. You know, there's like money start to be missing, and this is the moment, this difficult years of Monet where there's gonna be no money. Yeah.
So he's got no more money coming from his family, he's got a kid on the way, and he still wants to paint, and he's not yet making money out of it. We'll try, guys, because as you know us, or you may have understood that we're both French, so we try to not butcher the English language, but sometimes Monet and money we can, so we'll try really to say money and Monet for the painter. Because
it's really funny that it's the same word, and because we'll get to that at the end. You know, there is
at some point he had both. Okay, so he is a young man in Paris, struggling with money, has a bunch of friends. Some of them are rich, some of them are poor dudes like his. They start to hang out with girls. Sometimes the girl gets pregnant. That's what happened to Claude.
In this case, yeah.
But so what's his connection with the other painter and with the word Impressionism?
Well, it's the whole, you know, story of this weird moment in history where literally art starts changing, and this is one of those just changing. We're in the 1860s, and there's new invention being made. Show the apples. Look at this.
So we run into that while we were walking or filming the beginning of the tour. So it says the Museum of Impressionisms, with an S, as Olek told us, is offering you apple from the garden. Just help yourself. And look at that. So you have some dahlias in the back and some gorgeous apples of Normandy.
We're gonna come back. We're gonna come back.
We're
for
definitely. I'm gonna
tour,
eat that one. That's one for me.
I'm gonna bring some.
Because Normandy, guys, to the west of Paris, in between Paris and the Atlantic Ocean, is a region where the gastronomy is quite a lot made of apple, pears, on the fruit side,
and milk,
and a lot of dairies. Yeah, cream.
Cheese, butter, and cream with cheese, and butter with cheese, and cream with butter with cheese, and all this thing together.
What did you eat last time we were here? You had some fried camembert.
Yeah, that was a dessert made out of cheese with apples.
With cream and butter on it. So you mix it all, and it was good. It sounded very weird, but it was. I mean,
we come here to eat. We didn't really come here to do
I trust you that it was good because you didn't share any piece with me.
I don't share food in general, but it's this one was a special case.
So back to our topic, the word impressionist. Where does that come from?
The 60s, there are inventions being made. Originally, new ways of painting, and these new ways of paintings are due to probably two weird inventions. The first one is the camera. The photos, which means we don't need to paint what we see anymore because there's something that is just appearing, that is just technically making better views that whatever can be
there's
seen.
No point in being as accurate as possible.
You have to invent, you have to create. And the second thing is the technique and the way of painting is those tubes in which you put paint that you press and then the tubes come out.
That is something I know, but this is really, really key, is the fact that this is an invention. For us today, it's just normal. You go buy paint in a shop.
And they give you this. And at this time, they gave you some powder and they were explaining to you how to make paint.
How to mix it,
And literally, this means that number one, you have to have time, you have to be a professional in it, you have to do it indoor, you have to have a special workshop for it, you have to pay for it, you have to remember the composition of the paint that you're doing.
To get your color.
Suddenly appears something where you have standard paint inside a tube that is cheap, that you can take outside. I mean, the whole revolution is this. You can take it outside and go paint outside.
Yeah, and then you paint outside because it's now technically possible, and so they can go paint this. Flowers, little villages, take the train. There was
the train. That's another invention. That's another thing.
That's something new too. Yeah, it's true. Distances get much smaller.
You can leave and paint outside, and you can leave further.
There's a car. Isn't mine? That's my car? No. No, it looks like mine. But it's crazy. There is absolutely...
I hope it's not yours, because otherwise we'll live here.
You would not want to live here?
Oh my God.
That's what you say?
I love nature. I love nature.
All right, now you start to scare me. So train is new, tube of paint is new, even Portziv easel is new. So
new school around new painters, and those new painters originally, one is called Courbet, and then one appears called Manet. And around Manet, a group of new painters, and those new painters are called Cézanne, Monet, Sisley, Renoir, Basile.
That's crazy. All these guys,
Morisot.
these guys, they're a group of friends, and they all, I mean, not all of them, but they made it quite well.
At the end, well, some of them
yeah.
never really made it, but those who made it, they made it very well. Yeah. And this idea of painting together slowly, well, again, they're revolutionizing painting, but at the same time, they want to sell stuff, which means their thing is to survive and to live out of it, which means they are trying to expose and to sell this. And at this time in the 60s, the only way to sell is something called a salon, which means a sort of place where
it's something official. It's run by a governmental institution.
It is only official. To be an artist, you have to pass through an official scheme. That is, you have to pass and being kind of selected by people appointed by the government to tell you if you're an artist or not.
That's crazy.
And
that's the only way. That's the only way, because that would be the way you get public orders. And
public orders, and because suddenly appear, you have rich people buying your art. And
so you have to do what they expect you to do, and it doesn't really help for creativity.
Classical orders, which means the government and people who are rich buy your stuff. And of course you have to follow the rule. So the rule is if you want to be in a salon of a millionaire, at this time nobility of French nobility, you have to paint like the others were painting before.
Yeah.
And slowly those painters will get together and create some exhibitions together where they're trying to sell. And in those exhibitions you have all of them getting together and presenting 1, 2, 3 paintings that they painted during the, let's say, season, like recently, and they propose it. And in this presentation, literally at some point, one painting, Impression Soleil Levant.
That's the one that gives the name.
This is one painting of Claude Monet, of course.
It's an impression. It's an early morning painting of the port of Le Havre, the city he grew up in. He had to give a title before the exhibition start, and he didn't know how to call it. So let's call it an Impressions Rising Sun, because it's something done quite quickly, of trying to catch the atmosphere, and then more than the architecture or.
And then slowly journalists make fun of it, and they use this name of going, look at those guys painting weird. And this painting is called Impression, so he starts calling them to mock them, basically Impressionists, and the whole posterity, the whole future will remember the whole movement as those who gathered around this first exhibition in 1874, where there was this painting called Impression Rising Sun.
Rising Sun, the beginning of the name. We're about to, guys. We're about to get into the
we're
garden.
Going around. This is the whole wall that you're seeing. The whole pass is literally, the house is just behind this. So we're going around the whole property, basically, of Claude Monet, and we're going to enter. So now, because of the virus, first
we need
masks,
to put our masks
and then
on.
The entrances are a little bit different. We have to go through tiny, but there is nobody in the village.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. So we're putting our masks on, we're getting inside, and we meet you back inside, just behind this wall, right behind us. See you in a minute. Okay, we've made it. We are in the central alley of the main garden. In the back, you can see the house of Monet, and maybe you can hear a little bit the road behind us, because there's a road that cuts into the garden. So this section, the flower garden, to the second one, which is the Japanese garden. But we will get into that. We were talking, Olek, that in the first exhibition there is this painting called Impression Rising Sun that gives the name to the Impressionist movement. Most people mock this painting, but one person likes it.
Yeah. One person likes it and is a millionaire, and he lives next to Paris. He's called Ernest Hd. And Ernest Hd is going to be the future of Claude Monet. He's going to buy the painting. He's going to buy the painting. He's a fan of Claude Monet, and he's going to buy the painting. And actually, he's going to support the whole effort of Claude Monet. How to live? He needs money, and he has no money. He's presenting, painting, doing this thing, and this whole thing makes that he invites Claude Monet home. He just goes, "Come to my house. I've got a wife and 5 kids."
He buys the painting, several paintings of Monet, and asks him to come live with him or work.
Well, at the beginning, you paint the family. That's the best way of getting money, basically.
To go make private portraits.
Yeah, private portraits and the whole, domain of Hd. Basically, he's got a castle, basically, and he's supposed to paint there. He's supposed to paint the whole family, and for a few months
the family, remind us, it's so Ernest.
Ernest, his wife Alice, and 5 kids. Yeah?
5 kids.
5 kids. So there is 4 daughters and 1 son. Yeah.
And we are in
76, let's say 76.
Yeah.
This is those moments 75, 76, and this is this real friendship with those 2 guys, and at the same time one rich man supporting the effort of the young painter and his wife. And he goes, he paints.
So Monet moves from Paris to their home, which is in the suburbs of Paris, and he moves there with Camille.
Well,
they're not yet married, but
at the beginning he goes alone to work, basically. Yeah, the Camille is not. They're not married. She's got a kid, and young kid is 1 year old. So basically, when he goes there alone and he starts painting, yeah? And he starts painting a lot. There's a massive painting there of what we call the turkeys that he paints basically in the castle.
Yeah, that painting is at the Musée d'Orsay.
Yeah, Musée d'Orsay. And the whole spectrum of the way it's painting. This is absolutely beautiful, and it's outdoor. And then he goes back to Paris with some money, basically. And a few months later, let's say a year, 1.5 later, he's almost like called back, because we realized that there's a new kid coming, basically, that will be called Jean-Pierre, a son. Ernest Hd will have another son. So there's going to be this is kid number 6.
So Alice get pregnant.
Yeah.
While Claude Monet is working for her husband.
And clearly there's gonna be
I hope you guys you start to see it coming, right?
Yeah, there's some gossip going on at this time of what's going on with kid number 6, because he was clearly very, very close to Alice. The painter was very close to Alice. And some will even say that kid number 6 strangely looks like the son of Claude Monet. So there is a big coincidence. And this is literally what's funny about Claude Monet, because we consider him at this time as a modern painter, which means he's painting modernity, but at the same time, the lifestyle of Claude Monet is absolutely modern. I mean, the way he will handle the situation is very strange, because a year later, we're talking 77, 78, Ernest Hd, this millionaire, will sell the art he has, because he's not a good businessman and he goes bankrupt. He has no money, and when he has no money, he literally has to move out of his castle. And then the idea is that his wife, Alice, who's a bourgeois wife from this family, goes, we're going to start living with Claude Monet.
With her lover.
Yeah.
Because they knew. I mean, he knew.
There's a sort of combo, a sort of association, weird situation when you have 2 couples living together with the kids. So there is 2 grown-ups. There's Camille and Claude, and at the same time so there's Camille and Claude, and at the same time there's Alice and Ernest and their kids. So now there is
Yeah, that's not a common situation, guys. I hear some of you already mocking the French for, you know, having mistresses and things like that.
1877,
1877, two couples, 8 kids.
Coming to the countryside of France, which is not
in
even
a very
city
rural
like here.
area, yeah.
So they are moving here. So Camille is pregnant again.
I'm stopping for a second, Olek, but can you believe
there's nobody?
That is just the two of us in the Garden of Monet? Yeah. Guys, last year, because this place is open 7 months a year, last year there were 700,000 visitors, okay? And today it's...
so it's nobody. There's 3,000 every day, and today there's going to be 50 people.
And it's tiny alleys. I mean, you guys can see that. You know, it's. I'm going to film my feet not because they're interesting, but just so you see that it's a very small path, so it can get packed quite easily. But today it's not. So we're so happy we're making this video for you. All right. So sorry, Olek. I wanted to mention that, but. We have these, you know, let's call it, I don't know, a tribe or...
The tribe, yeah.
The tribe of Claude Monet who lives together. Not here though, not in...
First they go to Vetheuil.
Yes.
First they arrive to a place literally that is next door. It's really
Vetheuil is a village a few miles from here.
Because at the beginning he has no money. Yeah, you always have to imagine that the situation is at the beginning in the 70s difficult. It's improving, yeah, because something almost weirdly miraculous happened for Claude Monet. It's in the 70s. He met some art dealers. Yeah, he met them because there was a war going on with Prussia, and plenty of people immigrated to England. They went to London, and in London, the poor painters arrived with the rich painters, which means the painters from the old school, one especially called Daubigny.
Yes.
And Daubigny and Claude Monet, who are completely different lifestyles because one is already established while the other one is new, they will kind of be in the same problems in London, and they will introduce themselves, especially Daubigny, because this is my art dealer. This guy will help you. And this guy is called
so that's
Durand-Ruel.
That's the luck of Monet, is to have immigrated for a year or two during the Franco-Prussian War. He meets Paul Durand-Ruel. That's the guy who is going to make his career
this is the man that
skyrocket.
That Monet was saying that there was crazier than the painters. It's the guy who buys the painters who are considered crazy. And he said that without him we would die starving, because literally he was the one that was almost like at the edge of bankruptcy himself, buying our products, he says. And this man will make that in the 70s there's struggle, and there's going to be some zigzags, some ups and downs, and then slowly he gets better, and the situation gets so better that he moves from the small house in Vetheuil to this house that he buys for the whole family. So here now there is all the kids that are there.
You guys cannot really see from here yet how big the house is, so we're going to get closer to that.
So this house as well didn't know the drama that happened in the small house next door, which means in Vetheuil.
So Vetheuil, it's shortly before he moves here to Giverny.
A few months, a year, let's say, around Vetheuil, and it's the first house where he kind of moved next door, and literally his wife. And
this house, by the way, sorry, but this house is still a private home. So when we take you guys to visit Giverny, we drive through the village of Vetheuil. We cannot get in the house, but we can stop by and show it to you. We can still knock at the door and ask the inhabitants, if we can go in.
And they freak out.
They freak out a bit because, too many people do that. But so some people, they still live in the house where Claude Monet has lived.
Where the drama happened.
Where the drama happened, and
because the drama is she's pregnant from her second kid, and while she's pregnant.
When you say she, you're talking Alice. It's a little bit complicated.
I'm talking about the first one. I'm talking about Camille at this time.
But Camille, yes.
Yeah. So Camille is pregnant, and second son, and she gets a cancer, and probably a cancer from the uterus. So it's she will die from that cancer, and when she
shortly
dies
after the birth of
the second son. So she is buried in Vetheuil still. She's not here, basically, because you'll see that the whole tribe is here in Giverny. Probably will finish by that. Yeah, the views are kind of spectacular.
Yeah.
Flowers and nobody. Yeah.
So while they move to Vetheuil, poor broke, and all we have 6 and 2 and 2 and 2, so all 12 of them, And that's when Monet has his second son with Camille. She dies there, and Ernest
And
leaves
Ernest
the
will-
household.
Yeah, he will kind of go as well. He will leave. There's this moment of shame that he kind of lost all the money and couldn't provide, so he will never.
And
be-
he
will
understands
die
that
really quickly
his wife,
after.
his wife is
Yeah, spending
is in
way
lo-
too much time
is
with.
in love with Claude. Claude is in love with her, and so clearly he's he's a plus one that could be spared.
Yeah, it's he's still present, and at some point he's still attached to his wife, but he dies in 1891, and literally the last 30 years.
This is
that's
a,
apple trees.
a highly curated apple tree. It's pretty cool.
Show the afros of the chickens, because this is the craziest stuff.
It's just to let you know, guys, that in Giverny there are thousands of flowers, more amazing one than another. But the one thing that Olek likes the most when he comes here
Is the afro
are-
chicks.
are the afro chicks. So these chickens and hens with trying to.
I'm sure
film
everybody
them.
who's watching this video right now is going, "What is that?" These are afro chicks that live here. Yeah.
Because I mean, maybe not the afro one. It's called a Padovana chicken. Padovana chicken.
So from Padova, from Italy, basically. But everybody knows they have afro, so it's just clear there.
Because I mean, why are they here? Just to remind us that back then, in a house like this, you would
is
have a
full-
farm.
Yeah, it's a farm. It is a farm, and there's food being produced in this house. I mean, he has to feed a family of, at this time, 8 kids going around here. And
So
he plus the guests he has and everything. There is a production of eggs coming constantly, plus all the fruits and stuff that are growing in the garden. So this garden is really a story, because this idea is, when he comes here, is a city man. Claude Monet is not a man that
Yeah,
knows
he's not a
even
country boy at all.
yeah, he doesn't know how to grow those things, and during those 40 years he will learn how to kind of tame nature, how to have all this thing all together and growing in order, and in a weird situation, because it's order without being an order, like if we compare it to French gardens, literally.
There are straight lines.
There are
but
straight lines,
It's
but
not
it's still-
pruned as much.
There is still some wildlife in here. A bit crazy.
It's amazing. I am a little bit frustrated because 2 persons have passed by us, which is unacceptable.
yeah.
I thought we had privatized this place for ourselves.
Do you remember when we used to do tours here, and there's like lines in those alleys, and you just kind of push the person?
Come on, don't exaggerate.
I waited here.
Yeah, it's true that since, I mean, the place is rather big, but the path on which you can walk is quite limited. Sometimes it feels like a constant line, especially in August.
But you have to imagine it's a house of a man, and there's 3,000 people coming here every day.
Yeah, it was not planned for that. You're right.
So imagine 3,000 people in your house in one day. So this is what happens in Claude Monet's house regularly.
The other thing that is really cool in this garden, they are a team of 11 full-time gardeners all year round. The head gardener is a local man. He's been working here for 30 years. He's been the boss for 2 years, but he's been working here for 30 years. Is that there are flowers from early April to the end of October, and so depending what season it is you are visiting the place, you will find different colors. And also another pretty cool thing is that the flowers are organized by colors. So I don't know if it's going to show well because I'm going to film against the sun, but in the eastern section, which is that one here, for the morning, it's rather cold colors. So most of what we've seen for now was blue, purple, mauve, beige. While when you get to the southern and to the western section, you get to much warmer colors with yellow here, and then behind, we will see that in a few minutes, you will find exactly orange,
brown.
red. So it's not at all randomly planted. They do an amazing job at recreating the atmosphere of Claude Monet. We can't know for
So
sure.
it's very difficult because the thing is, it's a 40 years of gardening here. So even under Claude Monet, this garden evolved plenty of times.
Yeah,
And for
because he's
instance,
lived here 43 years, so he
two
changed his
trees
mind.
that we're seeing just in front of us. This is literally the Alley of the Roses. So it's called the Alley of the Roses, basically l'avenue de l'Allée des Rosiers. So it's really easy to find because if you Google that, you're going to have plenty of views that Claude Monet painted, especially at the end of his life.
But only 2 of these trees still remain.
Yeah. And because Claude Monet, we cut them to give more space because at some point the garden evolving, there is no need to.
It's alive. I mean, it's nature, so it can't be, it's not plastic or wax flowers or anything like that. Okay, so you guys, we will find back the central alley with the gate, and behind the gate there's the road. And so back then there was a road for cars and also train racks, because there's a little train station not far from here. So we've walked around. You cannot walk in the central alley because it's it would ruin pictures. And so we've walked by the eastern side, and we have reached the house. So remember that this house was first rented out by Claude Monet, and then he purchased it when he made enough money. It's a massive house. It's a fairly big house because there were 8 children, Alice, and their staff, because they had kitchen maid, they had
There's 3
gardeners.
at the beginning. Yeah? There was 3 ladies cooking in the kitchen. There were gardeners here. It's Claude Monet always kept this idea that there is people serving. He was educated bourgeois style, and the funny part is, even when he had no money and he was living in Vauxhall, still poor, he was more living on credit, but there will be always somebody working and doing stuff basically for him.
Because the last thing you would do is to drop your lifestyle.
Yeah, it's you keep this forever. And then at some point in the 80s, he comes here in 1883. When he arrives here, I think it's April. At this moment, he has no more money problems. Let's say he's not rich yet, but at this moment, the money is already there, and there is, for the next 40 years, an easy situation financially.
Yeah, money is no longer the problem.
So at the end of his life, the guests who are here starts to be very, very famous, especially one of his best friend, probably his best friend at the end of his life, called Georges Clemenceau.
The president of the Republic.
Yeah, French president of the Republic.
So he's made it in high society, and he's got also other artists, painters, but also sculptors like Auguste Rodin.
There's people from the
here.
cinema industry appearing in the 20s already. There's already people from
he's
all over.
He's a massive public figure.
Art dealers are coming here, sometimes guys who are some scouts coming from the US, coming to purchase arts basically in here. US is a really important situation in this beginning of the century, and especially in the story of Impressionism, because you really have to understand that when the 1860s happen and all those celebrity painters are selling, those who are buying is French nobility. At the same time, the Americans are sending here scouts to find new literally families from Pittsburgh, from Milwaukee, from Chicago, from Detroit, all those new business guys basically who have money, who are young, who are just new industry. They're sending people here to be able to buy new stuff from Europe. And this, what the Impressionists are doing. Yeah, new aristocracies buying new painters, and literally for them it's cheap, so they're buying by the dozen, and it's just going. It's really funny because now if you want to see early Impressionists, and you live in the US, for instance, you are fully served. There is plenty of the stuff you will see in the house. And so when I'm saying see in a house, you'll realize that this house is full of paintings, except that it's not original.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that, because obviously the house, to keep it as it was, cannot support modern security standards. So we're going to meet you guys behind this glass here in the central room of the house, to talk about the paintings that Monet kept with him, the one that he never sold.
And just after that, we'll go to the...
And then we will go to the upper floor, the main floor, which is where they lived. So we will see that ground floor was more for a reception, and then the what we call the first floor here is more the private, for private life. So we will see you guys back in there. We will see lots of paintings. We want to be fully honest with you. These are copies. And most of these paintings are today in museums, but they're pretty well made copies.
Throughout the world, yeah. So
the world.
Literally, some of them are in Cleveland, in Atlanta, in Washington, in Chicago, in Paris, in Hermitage, in Berlin, in the whole world, in São Paulo. There's plenty of paintings. We can
we're bringing the whole world to you guys in a minute. So we'll go inside because we need to go check our bags, and all of this is not good for. I mean. You don't need to see that, and we will see you back in the house in a minute. Thanks. Okay, we're back inside.
Hello again.
There is absolutely nobody else but Olek, myself, and a very nice lady who who puts a little bit of clean to wash your hands, cleaning stuff for your hands. I don't know how to pronounce it. So we are in the living room slash the reception room of Monet. It is full of paintings, reproduction as we said before. And which one would you like to start with, Olek? And you can only choose 5.
That's not going to be possible.
No, I know, but I'm trying to keep it short.
Well, I mean, all of them. You know, it's a weird situation because right now we are actually in the head of Claude Monet. So this is the cool thing about this the scene.
What do you mean by we are in the head of Claude Monet? We are in the head of Claude Monet.
If you look at some paintings, they are without frames. You know, some of them are framed and others are not. And this idea is that this is really paintings of a workshop of an artist. And in here, he keeps the painting he loves that means something for him and for whole his, process of creation, which means from the beginning to the end.
They're like bookmarks of his career and of his creation.
Which means he receives here people, and it's not for sale. Those things are not for sale. It's you have here art dealers who are coming, who want to buy paintings, and he goes, no, this stays here. It will be sold only when I will decide that it's ready to go because it will be replaced by something else.
Wow, that's amazing.
So we can easily go throughout 5
What
or 6.
do we start with? The family photos or some paintings? Let's show a bit of photos. So here you see Monet in his garden. So you see him with his big beard. We are toward the end of his life when he's become very, very famous. And here you see his second wife, Alice.
There is a buste of Rodin a little bit higher here.
Just behind is
made by his friend, basically. It's Claude Monet.
So that is Claude Monet, but the
sculptor.
The sculptor is Rodin, because they look a little bit the same. The two of them with
come on, they all look the same.
Short hair, long beard. Yeah, that's me saying that they all look the same.
And then there's Alice.
Right?
Alice, the curiosity of it is she's the second wife. She's the one that took care of Camille when Camille was dying from cancer. So
that's quite amazing to say, because
he married her. Yeah,
he married Alice, but as you guys remember, at some point Monet, was married to Camille, but was starting his story with Alice, and Alice actually took care of Camille until she died. And on this painting you see here, which is in the Orsay Museum, the original one, this is a portrait of Camille on her deathbed.
Yeah, this is the last thing of Camille that we have. So it's basically, Camille is the painted one. Alice is not painted. Alice is funny because there is paintings of Alice, but not really by Claude Monet. There's other painters who painted her as a bourgeois lady from France. While Camille, she's the model, so she's literally all over the paintings of Claude Monet at the beginning, view from the front, from the back, sometimes even 5 or 6 times on the same painting, just looking in different directions and with different hairstyle.
And Monet also painted himself. That's him, we see, with the beard and the black hat.
So he makes self-portrait. In here, if we go quickly, there is this house at Argenteuil, basically, when he lives by Paris.
I'm going to try to follow what you're saying. So here is outside the house in Argenteuil.
He lives still in Paris.
With his young boy.
in here you have Rouen, because when he's here, he's using this place as a base to go and paint in different
Rouen,
places.
so the Cathedral of Rouen, so it's another famous series. We've talked about the Haystack, but the Cathedral of Rouen is also something.
There's trips. There's a trip
quite
that
important.
It made in Norway here, basically. So this one is like called snow.
Yeah, with the snow. So it's a trip of his to Norway.
Haystacks, of course.
Haystacks behind.
Behind you see Westminster.
Haystacks you would find in the just outside the house. Some boats on the coast of Normandy. Houses of Parliament in London. You mentioned he traveled to London.
His wife in a red
overcoat. If we switch to the other side,
this one is in Cleveland, for instance. The one with the red. This is Camille.
With the red hood.
Yeah.
Camille. On the boat, on the little barge boat. These are daughters of Alice here, right? In the Japanese garden where we will go.
This one is in São Paulo.
Later.
There's two versions of it. Basically, one is here, one's there. One is in São Paulo, I think, and one is still at the foundation. Preparation of
the one here that's in Venice. That's where he took his honeymoon trip when he married Alice.
This is in Holland. He spent some time in Holland, of course.
Then above in Holland, you can recognize here some tulip fields, a canal, a windmill.
This is a series as well next to it that he made when he was in the forest of Fontainebleau while they were painting a famous painting called
The Lunch on the Grass.
Exactly, Lunch on the Grass, the version of Monet, of course.
Yeah, the answer to the one of Manet, was made a couple of years before. The Lady with the Umbrella. I love these paintings. These are my favorite
Suzanne.
ones.
This is really special, this painting, because there's literally one painting made in 75, 76 that is right now in DC, in Washington, so basically in the US.
And the model for this is one of the daughters of Alice.
Of Alice, yeah. So basically Suzanne. As a kind of a reminder, he paints the daughter basically instead of his wife here, and literally at the same composition, yeah, looking on the right and looking to the right and to the left.
That is really amazing. And here is one of his latest paintings. Where his sight started to be a little bit, reduced. That's the least to say. So that is actually the Japanese bridge.
We'll be on it.
We'll go to it afterwards. Yeah. Because he died at 86, and so his sight
was really bad. He was just not seeing. So basically, we think that the things he was painting.
Yes. Merci, madame. You're right. We forgot to show you guys this, which is just by the entrance.
Literally what we just seen,
exactly.
But live.
So Monet so you can see that the furniture is exactly the same. And so here on this photo, obviously the paintings were the original ones, and so it's pretty cool because the foundation, the museum today, has put exactly the same ones as they were.
Camille and the sons.
And so here, the two young boys are Monet's sons.
This one's in Marmottan now.
And Camille, the mother of his two boys, who is also here in a field of flowers. Yeah, it's interesting that he never painted Alice. I mean, she probably didn't want to.
Yeah, it's not. She doesn't. She's not a model. I mean, she's not a model. You can paint her for. Yes. She's Alice is refusing to be a model basically, so it's not this. I love this room because of this.
So this is some kind of.
So this was the dry store originally. This was the
dry store.
Yeah, this is where you were keeping spices and all the dry kind of food, and at the same time, when you have spices here, it smells good. So basically, the whole house has this sort of smell of dry, pepper and flowers and different little things that were kept here. And there's two boxes that are there, the originals, which is basically the storage for eggs. This is a box where you have holes.
You mean the eggs of the Afro chicks?
Of the Afro chicks. The Afro chicks, literally. And then there you were storing it. So there was somebody from the garden every time they were finding eggs, because at this time they were literally all over the garden.
I'm going to do something you can absolutely not do while you film normally, but I'm going to see myself in the reflection. Woohoo! So you guys now know our secret. We've been able to buy a stabilizer like this. This yellow thing is a receptor for our microphones, which allow the sound to be much better.
We are just discovering all this.
Yes, we're like kids, you know. It's almost as if it's Christmas before the season, and all of this thanks to you guys for your support every week. So that is pretty cool. We are not changing career, but we're trying to do our best to bring what we love to your homes. What do you want to show me, Olek?
Well, this is another crazy stuff of Claude Monet. He's modern, and when I'm saying he's modern, and he's painting in the 60s, 70s at the same time in a country called Japan. It's called the Meiji era. So basically the moment where Japan, actually you see on those flags, is kind of opening its door to the world. So there is plenty of Japanese artists who suddenly for the first time, they are seeing foreigners, and they are seeing Americans, English, Russians basically coming to there, and literally Japan will just spread throughout the world, which means if you're modern and you live somewhere in the 19th century, it's cool to have Japanese stuff at home.
You are super excited about Japanese things because it's just getting started. It's a whole new culture that opened. This is something we're going to talk about when we go to the kitchen, because there's a lot of art like this. In the first floor, we will see paintings that are not made by Monet, but they were of his private collection. So these are paintings either he was offered or he bought, and made by other painters of the same time, right? So this is a portrait of Claude Monet, but it's made by
Auguste Renoir, an early friend, and probably one of the last as well, because he's one of those impressionists that lived almost the same span, basically, than Claude Monet and his wife. Camille, the first wife, basically, Camille, made by Renoir as well. So those two paintings now are in Marmottan Museum, in a museum in Paris, basically. The first room when you enter, you have the originals, and the Marmottan made copies, and they are here now in the locations where they were, you know. That's and then really there's cool. Another painter friend that we can see in both things. You see one in front of you, and it's called Cézanne.
Cézanne is a friend of Monet too, right?
Yeah, Cézanne is a friend.
And so the two paintings we see now are by Cézanne.
Yeah. This one, I think
Wasn't Monet a little bit jealous of Cézanne? Like considering Cézanne was much better than anyone else?
It's very difficult, basically, to this weird relationship, basically, that they had. So they admired each other, and they were clearly saying that, you know, that's his favorite. You know, Monet's favorite is Cézanne, but at the same time, of course, his competition is modernity. Cézanne is considered by the next generation, especially one super painter called Picasso, who was saying that Cézanne is our father. You know, it's like because of the rediscovery of Cézanne and the influence of Cézanne will kind of open a new door. And especially this door of shape, not only of color. So those, you know, things that will lead to something called cubes, that will do something called called something
it's
called
definitely cubism. Quite different. You can see the pattern between Renoir, Monet, and Sisley, but Cézanne, it's really
and
something
you
else.
clearly see that in the room of Claude Monet, the two massive big paintings are two paintings of Cézanne.
We also see some amazing French furniture from the 1700s.
That's really funny because
that means you've made quite a bit of money even back then to buy furniture like that.
And actually, here in the house, there is a lot of originals basically that we have, and it's not the paintings, but it is the furniture. And I want you to just show, of course, the painting that you have here of.
So we're going to go back to the bed and yes.
Just one thing is
this
this funny picture. That's a wedding. That's a wedding of a man called Theodore Butler and Marthe Hd.
Wait a second. So here is Claude Monet.
Yeah.
And the bride and the groom is a man called Theodore Butler.
Butler, yeah. And then the whole
I think that's a name that will sound familiar for one of our viewers.
Yeah, Butler is one of the important men from the whole connection US and Claude Monet. And here next there is a merchant called Durand-Ruel.
Ah, that's the one.
That's the Mr. I'm buying all the stuff.
It's a bit hard to film a photo, but I hope it will show you
the kids of
well
Sisley
on the screen.
Were here. Sisley had kids, and they're here.
The kids of Monet.
And their daughters and the whole family basically is here.
And so it's a wedding. Here we can recognize the house.
Yeah, we'll talk about it a little bit further, basically, probably. The bed where he died.
Well, the bed where he slept, and just one night, it's also where he passed out, yeah. But for 43 years, this was his house.
Yeah. with a painting of Gustave Caillebotte just above.
Yeah, I love this painting. It's
So
a street of Paris,
actually,
right?
this is just a small version. Is actually a work that was preparing the real painting, which is in Chicago now. And it is basically one of the friends of Claude Monet called Gustave Caillebotte, who's rich and who was buying a lot of paintings of the Impressionists, especially one called Bal au Moulin de la Galette.
Oh, the famous Renoir.
Yeah, the most famous Renoir, probably one of the most famous Impressionist painter. Honeymoon in Venice.
Yeah, it's very cute because you see this couple, they are in their late 60s, they finally get married and
They finally, easy because the kids are out.
Yeah, and they go to Venice, like, newlyweds. Let's go see the view from the bedroom of Claude Monet. That's quite spectacular.
This is the most spectacular here, because when you wake up to that during 40 years, you open your...
I read that he would never close the shutter at night to be woken up by the daylight, and that's what you see when you wake up every morning. That's really cool. All right, leaving the bedroom, we now get to Claude Monet, because they had separate bedrooms, he and Alice. And so now we get to his private bathroom.
Separate bedrooms is really important to know that
Separate bedrooms, separate bathrooms.
Bourgeois families. Mr. doesn't sleep with Mrs. There are different rooms, different bathrooms.
And also,
in this one...
That's me again, hello. And also he can have his private collection of paintings, because Alice not necessarily shared his artistic tastes.
Yeah.
So some more Cézanne.
So in here you see, literally, if this room was to be sold with originals, that will be the most impressive collection in here. You have Boudin, probably his teacher.
Eugène Boudin was the, maybe not the teacher, but at least he was a painter who influenced Monet when he was a teenager.
Yeah. He told him to go and paint outside.
Paint outside, paint daily life, paint the sea, the sky. It's a bit hard to film because there's a bit of a reflection.
Which is the
last part. Paul Signac, yeah.
Last part of Impressionism and the beginning of Pointillism. There is a portrait of Cézanne, of course. This is a fantastic new work of Cézanne.
How do you call, in French we said nature morte, dead nature. It's a still nature, I think.
Still life, no?
Still life, in English you say. In French, when you see apple, fruits and things like this on the table, we call it a nature morte, a dead nature. I don't think that's the way you call it.
For the Cézanne in here, there is this one which is curious, because it's one of the only, and this is again where you see modernity, a portrait of a black man. Basically, it's all this when you consider Japanese, a portrait of a black man being painted in 1880s. You see literally the mind of a man that is completely somewhere else, where the people who at this age are still painting classical family members on a swing in a garden. And here he's just going further of that. You see that there is things of perspective, of color being studied, of works of different things basically are appearing. Cézanne, les baigneurs here above the door, Degas, Edgar Degas, of a moment basically that is the themes that are painted. You have literally a bathroom that today will be a museum, if there was just the paintings in this bathroom, you can tell about the story of Impressionism, about who are here.
And one I like also very much is the Pissarro on the other side. Because this one, I don't know if you can see, I'm going to get so close you will get an idea, because this is made of thousands of little points of color. That's what we call pointillism. And when you zoom out, all these points together, well, then it's a group of four ladies.
That one is in the Met. This one here, next to you, is in the Met, New York.
Yeah, you don't need to travel to France, guys. Just stay home.
Well, actually, to see the original, you have to
see the original. So, following our visit, so we leave the private space of Claude Monet. We now get into the private space of Alice. So this is...
Here the funny part is we don't really know what was on the wall, so we used it to start to put the collection of prints, of Japanese prints of Claude Monet. But the bathroom of Alice, we don't really know what was really on walls and how it was decorated.
Okay, so...
We used the space.
We don't know if she had... I mean, probably she didn't have all these Japanese prints.
Maybe, I mean, really, it's 40 years, and maybe it was other paintings.
Yeah,
maybe
and I guess back then you would not take photos of the bathroom. It's not like today when you take selfies in front of your mirror, right? she would not pose for Claude Monet, so I guess she would not take a selfie of herself in front of her mirror in her bathroom. But these prints are fabulous.
Yeah, so here in museography they put
it's
mainly
very
women,
simple yet full
like
of movement, life. Yeah, you see the you see the connection with the Impressionist. Whoop, I'm going to film the window. It's not that it's pretty, but now you can see it's covered with, I mean, there are lace curtains. It looks very cool, very old school at the same
C'est la
time.
maman de Claude Monet.
Okay, so guys, this is what's happening. I'm filming things on my own, and Olek cannot stop talking, so he gave the tour to two ladies.
They were just wrong, so I tried to help.
What were they saying? Who is this lady here?
But the idea is, it is a lady that matters for the life of Claude Monet, and not only just a beautiful lady. Because of course we were analyzing the paints, but like the question is, who is she? Well, that's Mummy. This is Mummy of Claude Monet, and there's Daddy there.
So that is Mother Monet,
yeah,
and Father Monet.
And this is how you see that
right,
it's already, you see that they were coming from money already. You know, like this is a family of bourgeois French people who were already saying that we could have, you know.
You can see
it's
1839. Yeah. So it's a year before Claude was born. So yeah, he was coming from a bourgeois family, hence the lifestyle, the habits, you know, but it just didn't follow the tracks of what was planned for him. So that's the bed of Alice. Another single bed, as you can see.
Some pictures as well.
And some...
Of Germaine. So this is another daughter of Ernest Hd and Alice, and then later that were adopted by Claude Monet. And on the picture here you see Jean-Pierre Hd, that's kid number 6. That's the one that was born, basically the last one of the whole tribe.
Yeah, he's the one for which we are not so sure who the father is. But it definitely looked like Claude Monet, which is a clue, but it's not a proof, it's not an evidence, so we can't be
Japanese
sure.
bridge.
Yeah, other photos.
This is
taken 1900 of the garden here.
We're going to be there in a few minutes, basically.
Yeah, we're going to continue there. And the Japanese bridge, of course, you've seen many paintings. We are going to show you that. I love this, the decor, the style. It's a very cool home. Another little cabinet. And eventually, the last room we can visit at this floor, because actually behind this door here, you have other rooms, but they're not open to the public.
This one is the room of Blanche.
But this one, yeah, it's the bedroom of Blanche. Blanche is one of Alice's daughter. The favorite one of Claude Monet,
it's
you would
difficult
say?
to say favorite for kids, you know that it's really difficult, but this thing is, she's a painter.
I can't wait to have a second one to see if it's difficult or not. For now, my only kid is my favorite one. So.
Yeah, Blanche is a painter and she will stay here forever, which means she will be here and she will probably be the best help to rebuild the house the way it is. Not only rebuild, but basically redecorate, because she's the memory of this house. She was just saying what painting was where, how she remembers and what she remembers. Actually, on a picture there, she's there. You know, there's a picture of her in the corner. And
I'm not so sure we can get it right.
It's a little
but
bit too small, dude. Small painting on the... Here, this painting here is Blanche, and so she was painting where her daddy was painting. You know, like it's she was following him and just having the same.
Of all the children, of the 8 children, whether they were biologically his or not, he loved all 8 of them. She's the only one who painted And she was the only painter Claude accepted to teach how to paint. So there was a strong connection between the two of them, and she remained with Claude even after Alice, so her mom, died.
She was literally the last one to live in the house. Yeah. The cat. I love this cat. It's my favorite thing in the whole house, I guess.
You want to talk about the cat again, I guess. All right, I'm going to film you, Olek, walking down the stairs because you do that so well. But mostly because there are other nice Japanese prints all over the house. So we're not so sure they were here when Claude was living there, but they definitely influenced.
Well, some rooms were sure, but yeah, the stairs, the room of Alice were not even. Cars.
Yeah, it's cool to still have family photos. You can see here in the middle of the screen.
Well, in here, clearly what's interesting in those rooms, this one and the next one, is the color they are painted, you know? It's what really hits blue. The thing is, yeah, it's or light blue or the one just behind you, literally, where you have a kind of stunning, even though you'll have to adapt to the machine, basically, because it's absolutely yellow in here.
Yeah, I'm going to film that one in a second. I just want to show you this photo of good old Claude. Yeah. With this, do you think he's smoking a gitane or a Gauloise?
I don't know. I think he made it himself. This is like one of those cigarettes.
It looks like his beard is full of ashes. Right.
Usually this is the entrance, no?
Yeah, exactly. The door here, that's the main entrance. So, and behind it, I don't know if you can see, it's a little bit hard, but yeah, you can see there's the main alley with the green gates. Okay, so we get to your favorite room, Olek, now, the dining room. Is it because you're hungry? Because
it's just a dining room. Generally, dining rooms are my favorite rooms. It's whatever we go, I mean, dining rooms. But for everything,
it's so lightful.
It's space, it's modern. I mean, it's modern, it could be made today and not today. There are some fantastic, you know, hints to history that, for instance, in here, it was already with a collection of Japanese prints. Basically, you see in the corner a picture of Claude Monet in the same room, basically in the same, and there's this.
And one of them is the most famous of them all.
It's, yeah, he had this hokusai, basically, the wave of Kanagawa is basically one of those things that is in the world, exists now. We have 5, 6 versions of it, I think, views of Mount Fuji, basically.
You said this is by Hokusai?
Yeah. So this one, for instance, there's a version that is that exists in DC, probably the best version, the best print, the most accurate one. But the fact that he had something that now would be worth millions, basically, in his dining room, because he just had it when he was worth nothing, because we have no idea how he collected those, but he was for no money, you know, like today those things are exclusive, but when he was purchasing them, he was buying boxes of them and just storing them and then sometimes decorating rooms.
That's crazy, yeah.
And
and you're right, there is a photo of Claude in the kitchen and in the back, I mean, you can see
the fireplace with vases that are still there, basically. So you still have the fireplace kind of identical here. The prints were there, so it's...
And even the porcelain.
The porcelain is local. This is coming from Rouen in here, so there is a
the colors they just perfectly match the prints.
It is that's the fascinating thing. It's one of the best association of ideas, and at the same time, yeah, modernity and beauty in one room.
This yellow and blue, it's almost like a Swedish flag. Yeah, sorry, that was a poor comment of mine. No, okay, you're not judging my joke.
I mean,
you are talking about your favorite piece in the world, the sleeping cat.
Because it has no way, there's no reason we have him here, this thing, and literally he had it, and it was already a cat made out of porcelain who was here and who disappeared for a while. It's just thanks to Japanese, money that this thing came back basically in here. We have text of Clemenceau, the president, who was already curious about the cats in his room.
So very, and fairly large table. I count 12 chairs.
So again, first family and then guests. I mean, guests are, at the end of his life, he's literally receiving here. He's not even moving to Paris, At the beginning, even of his stay.
If you want to talk to me, come to me.
Yeah. At the beginning of his stay in Giverny, he's traveling throughout Normandy. He's going to other places to paint. So that's when he goes to Rouen. He just goes and makes them. And at some point, he just ends in his garden and stays in his garden. He actually makes. That's the next thing we'll see probably, is he creates a part where he will stay for the last 20 years.
And when you come here, you eat the delicious food of Normandy made in this stunning kitchen. You're quite a cook yourself, right, Olek?
Yeah, I am.
Do you know how to cook pasta?
Yeah, you put it in a box and then it goes ding, and then you have pasta. And I can cook everything you want like this. Chicken, you put it in a box and then it goes ding, and then you have chicken.
So where's the microwave in this kitchen?
Well, the problem in here, this is the funny thing, it's modern for us. And it's modern for them. Like now, it will be almost designed and beautiful.
Yeah.
So same thing. The
you would
porcelain,
see this in a Parisian restaurant in 2020. It looks really Instagram friendly.
Probably the only room in here that is not decorated. It was kept, as French people say, dans son jus, in the juice, which means it stays exactly like a house in Normandy would have a kitchen, and it kind of never moved anything in here. And it's crazy because it was even bigger. There was a small window basically on the side that was allowing things to enter directly from the road. There was 3 ladies activating here and doing things.
3
and then
cooks.
Yeah, 3 cooks and I mean water in the kitchen.
Yeah.
In the kitchen, so you don't have to go outdoor to bring water in. And probably the most curious thing is this. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, that is a beautiful,
because not only water,
custom-made oven.
But the water goes in there, and then you have warm water in the house.
So they were putting coal right through here, so that would heat either the cooking table or the water that is kept in a basin behind. So you would have hot water, and that was super modern back then. What can we see on the plaque here? It says, let me clarify this, so Maison Briffaut, is there any date? So it's made in Paris, but yeah, it's early 1900. Yeah, we see the address of the store, 74 Avenue Parmentier. So yeah, very high-tech kitchen for its time. Well, if you want to feed all these people, you'd better have some good material. All right, thank you very much, Olek. That was a pretty cool tour of the inside of the house.
Of the house.
You can see that the sun is out, but it gets a little bit cloudy. So we're going to walk toward the Japanese garden and meet you guys back there. All right, see you in a second.
And now it's a change of mood.
Yeah,
it's
completely. Exactly. It's a whole different atmosphere. Different plants, different shape, different lines.
Different moment in the life of Claude Monet as well.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about, so chronologically, the Japanese garden is the last
chronologically, Mr. Monet is hoarding gardens. You know, when you start doing gardens and then you can't stop. And literally his garden on the other side, which is the Clos Normand, is too small. And because it's too small, he literally buys a chunk of land on the other side of the railroad. And on the other side, there was a little piece of river, actually, the Ept, that is a piece of Ept, because Ept is a little bit further, but that's what we see. And he literally does something that is absolutely illegal. He steals it.
You're getting into trouble.
He robs the water. Now, the thing is, he does that. When he does that, he's already famous and rich. So basically, when you're famous and rich, sometimes you can get away with some other stuff that you could not normally when he was younger and trying to do stuff. So here's what he does. He just literally...
Is that you saying you can't wait to be rich and famous?
Exactly.
Or
to
you already
be
get
able
along
to
with
steal rivers. I want to rob. This is my favorite thing. Will be to just. I want to
change the bed of the Seine River.
Yeah. He just takes. I don't know if you see that there is one part that doesn't move and one part that is absolutely going.
Yeah.
He literally.
Let me show that. Because there seems to be some kind of a fork, but actually that is the stream of the river going this way. And when we arrive here, then you can see that this part here is absolutely still.
Yeah. So he literally opened one pond. Basically, he gathers the
behind that, yeah, because the water that you see, guys, here is actually coming from the Japanese pond where the water lilies are. And when there's too much water in it, they open a gate, and so the water runs from here back into the river.
So you literally can paint in this absolutely still environment.
You can't say he stole the river. You can say he's temporarily
taking the water in his house.
Some of it.
Well, it's still illegal, yeah? You can't get me on that. I mean, you cannot do this. By the way, there was a huge trial for 1.5, 2 years. Of course, the farmers next door who are considering them as the weirdos, the crazies basically of Giverny. You have to imagine that there is like 8 kids living together, and on that 8 kids there is adults. We don't know who is with who. There is plenty of celebrities going to that house, including the president of the republic who's coming here. They are circulating in cars. Claude Monet was collecting cars. He loved cars.
At a time when people were on chariots.
Well, there was no cars anywhere, and especially not in Normandy. You know, like this is not. Then he brings plants from the world's fairs, those expositions universelles. And especially some stuff that is not supposed to be in rural Normandy, especially this.
Bamboos.
You have forests of so he puts bamboos here because they're really easy for him to control when he's painting, which means they can give you a natural wall screen, yeah, that prevents the sun from hitting directly on the Japanese pond. So basically,
so you're saying that the bamboos we see here, it's a green wall to
prevent the sun from
control
hitting
the light, the daylight behind it, which is where we're heading now.
Everything is structured here, not for the beauty of the garden, but for the amazing aspect of the work, yeah, of the painting. So you see bamboos on one side, while on the other, where you have a field full of cows. And poplar trees on the far that he's painting as well. So he's an expert of poplar trees as well. So this is how Normandy looks like.
So that's the end of the property. You see, it's a gated property, and then you still have farmland and cows, Normandy cows, in the background. Yes, it is crazy. And then you just jump over the Ebt River, and you are in Japan, or as people would believe a Japanese garden would look like back then. Ooh, I'm terribly frustrated. I've seen 2 other person here.
Yeah, sometimes there's maybe we've they appeared.
So that is the bed of the Ebt River as it goes today. So it surrounds the Japanese garden. You may hear
it's one of the
wind in the bamboos. I hope we're not gonna get hit by a falling bamboo. It's so beautiful. I mean, it looks like we've taken a trip to Asia, yeah. Oh, there's a map of the domain. Maybe we should do a little a break to show you guys a little bit
the
how
difference
it's organized.
of the gardens, yeah. So
remind us, the house is this.
We entered here, then we walked a little bit there, then we arrived to the house. Yeah.
Okay.
This is the house of Claude Monet here. So originally here there was a barn next to it. And then next to it, Claude Monet created, this is where the greenhouse was, basically created the first workshop. So originally he was painting kind of all over the garden and in the house, and then slowly this. At the end of his life, he will create another extra workshop here where he painted the water lilies.
The water lilies
massive painting
are in the Japanese pond here. And you can see pretty well that the river Ebt used to be going straight this way. Following the river, I mean, following the road. The road was following the river, to be accurate. There was a train line also, and so he's
literally stealing it here. And then
still-
actually he just moves to it, enters, keeps the water here, and if he wants, he just releases. Yeah. And so now the river is flowing here, and here he has his own.
It's a practical way to get fresh water for your plants, but the water comes back, so you know.
Well, that's not what the law says.
Okay.
That's not that the water comes back. You can't just take.
And then sure, a little bit of it evaporates, but you know, it's not like.
Sometimes you scare me with this.
Look at what you're just walking on. It's not like we're lacking water in Normandy, right? So let's not be too harsh.
Now enjoy this,
on the
because
guy.
this is why we're here. Technically, this arrival here, this bridge,
And behind
and the view from the bridge
was the normal entrance.
Yeah, that's where he was coming normally.
Up? Yeah, just one person. That's amazing. Oh, we're going to do a cool scene. You go on the bridge, and I will film you from there.
I was scared
Now we
that
have-
you would tell me you go in the water, because I'm not going in no water.
I know. Don't worry. Because now we have these wireless microphones. We can start doing some pretty cool scenes.
Hello, I am in the Japanese.
So how many bridges?
So it's you should see what's happening. Is I see it's raining, and I see the water basically.
Okay, I'm on the wrong side.
Yeah, you have to see it, because again it's a question of moment, and it's cool to see this now.
Oh yeah, you're right. I don't know if you guys will see that on the screen, but there are little drops of rain. It's very very tiny, but it's raining, and so it's. It makes the water sparkle a bit. Yeah, it just is so peaceful, spectacular. But there's I love there's a little place out there where there's a cool point of view. Let's go to there and talk a little bit why this obsession with the water lilies, the nymphaeas in French. So he found these flowers in an exhibition.
Yeah, it's all this story of exhibitions. There's plenty of presentation of modernity in Paris at this time, and he's looking at it, and it just fits, you know. At this time he becomes, with other friends as well, one called Renoir, one called Caillebotte, other painters, they're becoming fond of nature, and so they're buying products, new flowers, they're talking about it, you know, like how to grow them, what season the flowers are, what will be the color. Well, they kind of become literally collectors of plants. And the water lilies fits perfectly. So basically you can put it on a lake, it just grows and it stays with full of color, and different flowers are coming out, and plus they give you this atmosphere of tranquility. You're like, nothing moves. It's literally this idea of still.
Yeah, because at the beginning, the Impressionists, they're famous for painting scenes of daily life in a more urban style.
It starts with train stations first. Literally the place that they
parties, cafe life, cafe society,
and slowly,
and it moves to you can understand the guy here.
To be honest, they get older.
Yeah.
That's the truth. When they're 20,
I think I'm
girls and parties.
Yeah, I think I'm getting to that stage where
I start liking the gardens.
I like gardening more and more.
Because of the baby in your house, you go, I want the... By the way, babies, you know, when Claude Monet had this house, it was almost forbidden for kids. Like, you know, his kids couldn't go play in the garden because literally they will damage the workshop that actually feeds the whole family, you know. So it's when Renoir had his kid here, or Monet, it was just, don't play in the garden, you know, because the garden you will destroy my flowers.
The garden is my office.
Yeah.
It's not for kids. So water lilies, the last 20 years of his life, that's what he's painting?
Yeah. and then he's focusing on it, which means he's doing zooms sometimes, just like 2 or 3 leaves painted on sometimes spectacular panels, like big paintings that you can see basically in museums. And at the end of his life, the big job that he does is literally painting this whole garden, which means in its whole, which means he creates a workshop to be able to paint a massive long panel, a few meters basically long, that in 1918 he offers to his officially best friend, Georges Clemenceau, president of France, but he donates it to France, literally, as a symbol of peace, because it's the end of the First World War.
That's the origin of the panel of the water lilies.
That now are in a museum in Paris called Orangerie, and they are kind of surrounding you. It's a panel that you put around you, so there is a paintings that you discover in a room that you turn and you see them from exactly like in this garden, exactly like what you're doing right now, which means filming this atmosphere
like
in
a
its
360.
whole.
Yeah.
And it goes straight away to a museum. So which means he goes straight away to a museum because
yeah, that's quite rare for a painting, is that he knows that what he is painting is going to be located in this room, in that museum, for that context.
And then the museum will open. Well, he will live for 7-8 more years after this. And as soon as he's dead, it's already, the museum is blooming. Like, people are going just to see this painting there. It's really good as well to donate it, because it gives you a kind of push to your career. Like you have to imagine that in 1860, Claude Monet is a modern painter, but in 1920 he's not anymore, because in Paris there's
he's
other
80
people.
years old already.
Yeah.
And there's this time of the Picassos.
Matisse is there,
Matisse,
Modigliani is there. There's plenty of new names who are the new. There's new art dealers as well. And literally, by the fact of giving your painting to the state, it kind of, he's back. This is as well this idea that we have late Claude Monet water lilies because he's not selling them anymore, because he don't have to sell them anymore.
Yeah.
When he's young, as soon as he finished painting, if an art dealer, if somebody comes and wants to buy it, he's just selling, he needs the money.
Of course, yeah.
Now he's just rich enough to just go, that's the price, So some paintings are just staying in his house until he wants to sell them, or he just gives them. So it's and the last water lilies, probably the interesting thing in it will inspire a new generation of painters.
And you're right to mention that. It's a crucial point, because not that he has done things to be, to be exactly on the spot of what the market requires, but at the end of his life, he doesn't care if that painting is going to be sold. It's his legacy for the world. He doesn't
That's
need
the good
to
thing
sell.
of it. It's literally, he's almost going abstract, Like we say that he's one of those inspiration of this new school, born a little bit further, a little bit later in the US, of those abstractionists, especially a man called Jackson Pollock. This idea of dripping and this idea of gigantic panels of plenty of colors being made. Well, if you look at the late water lilies, it is, I can't say similar, because clearly Jackson Pollock, it's a genius on its own, and it's but you have
But you
literally those views,
the legacy of it.
the legacy of a genius, literally that spends the last 20 years of his life in going around like us around this pond here.
Okay.
That's where the money. That's where the money. This is where the water comes. Just behind you, you're on that bridge. This is the place of the robbery. This is where you get the water from the river, and you open the lock, you take the water, it stays here. So basically on one side you have the water moving, and on the other side you have absolutely still and willows and nothing moving.
Wow. And you can see with my eyes the sun is back. What a day we have. It was really a great tour. Olek, why are you hiding from me?
Because I am enjoying this. I can't believe there's nobody there. It's there's like 5 people that we've seen during the whole day. We've seen 10.
Everybody else is in Paris under the rain. We are here in Giverny for you guys in the house of Claude Monet. We are going to finish this tour outside by the church and the cemetery of the village of Giverny. Remember, it's not the name of the house, it's the name of the village where the house of Claude Monet is. We're going to finish the tour there because there's still a few great stories. So stay with us, we see you back in the cemetery. Et voilà, we have reached the church. Yes, you see guys, we're putting our masks on and off and on and off. That is because Normandy is not in a critical area, and there's just the two of us.
You don't have to wear a mask except in the house of Claude Monet because there's too many Parisians coming in here, which means us.
Yeah, us and other guides.
So people are kind of scared of us.
So inside a museum or an attraction, you have to wear the mask. But once you're back into the street, you don't have to. But if you enter a restaurant, you have to wear it back, etc., etc. So this is the church. We're gonna talk about the church a little bit more in a while. But we want to start with the cemetery, the little parish cemetery. It's quite common in rural France that you find graves, tombs surrounding the church. And especially we want to talk about a couple of, actually 3 tombs. And the first one is the tomb of Mr. Van der Kemp. Mr. Van der Kemp, he is a museum curator. He's the reason why we're here. Okay.
The reason why we're here, that's the
nothing less.
Because literally there is Gerald Van der Kemp is the man, and you see here names, and especially this one, Versailles, yeah? Musée de France, Museum of France, and Versailles. And the interesting thing about this guy is he's an expert of French art. He's such an expert that he's used after the Second World War to kind of help a group of guys called Monuments Men, basically to retrieve stolen art by the Nazis, basically, and to recognize what was going on about furniture and painting. And then after that, he becomes the curator of the Museum Versailles. And he is the reason why Versailles is great today, because during 20 years, he refurbishes Versailles. He brings back furniture, basically, thanks to the contacts that he made during the war, which means families that are called Rockefeller, Rothschild, like literally massive fortunes from the US. He contacts US millionaires and he brings them here. And those families will bring furniture back to Versailles.
It's the American Friends of Versailles. That's the origin of that society.
Just this idea of having sponsors that are not state, but private donators who will go and be there. And
so that is for Versailles. But why Giverny? Why
he retires in Versailles and then he comes to live here. And
so he retires.
Yeah, and he goes, I finished, and then he comes here and he realizes that this village is falling apart. So he takes his telephone and he starts calling, first, all the contacts that he made while he was the curator, and second, this name, Florence Bennett, Harris Van der Kemp. Yeah? So this woman here is an American billionaire. And he's married to one, and she has a book with names and addresses in the US, literally, that allows him to bring more guys, basically, to come here and work here. So they will supply the whole. So of course, when he's
they help the renovation of the house and the garden, and restoring the garden.
The gardens of the streets here, of the gardens of Claude Monet, and of course he's buried next to what we call the tribe of Claude Monet, which means all the tombs you have next to you is Germaine, is Jean-Pierre Hochedet, and the core here, Claude Monet.
So that is the tomb where Claude Monet is. The 2 other ones are his children, or some of his children. And so here, our beloved Claude Monet, 1840-1926, regretted by all.
So the first son, Jean Monnet. Second son, Michel. This is the one that is born in 78. That's the last one. This is the one where his mother died just after his birth, and he died in a car accident in Vernon. And when he dies in 66, the moment he dies, the state sends 2 cars full of policemen to to surround the house of Claude Monet. It's all the paintings that he donated to the French government and that became a museum. So in here there's Blanche, of course, the daughter, and then there's Alice, first wife.
Second wife.
Yeah, the second wife. And the most discreet thing is at the bottom of the cross. This is a surprise that Alice made. That's her first husband, Ernest Hojde. He's here because when Claude Monet was away, Alice, brought him back here, basically, to be sure. And now, the interesting thing is on top of the cross, there's Suzanne Butler.
So Suzanne is Alice's daughter, who married Theodore Butler, the painter.
That's the kids of Suzanne. He said to our mummy, Jim and Lily. They're Americans. So here, Butler.
That's very moving. They're all here.
Wife, Marthe.
Wow, clearly that tomb is not taken care of the same way as the...
It will be, I think, because they already, I've seen that from last year, they already
you see
cut
the
some things
branch
around,
of the cross that's missing.
Be,
yeah, you're right. Last year it was
I think
it was almost covered.
There's going to be some works done basically in it.
But that's no longer a property of the Fondation Claude Monet. It's the.
I don't think so, but to be honest,
it's for the descendants
really
and
who's in charge of.
Is there anyone today who is descending of the family?
You know, there's Jean-Pierre, the last one, has the whole family. French people know her, very much because Jean-Pierre Hojde, which means the last son of Alice, is not a direct descendant, even though we don't know.
But he was adopted, so.
Yeah, he was adopted after that by Claude Monet. One of his descendants is a woman called Dorothée.
Dorothée, who you can see this massive smile on his face. Dorothée, guys, was is a French lady who in the 80s, 90s, she had a show with cartoons and all. It was all we were watching as kids, and we discovered that she is connected.
She's the equivalent of our Disney Channel.
Yeah, she is the descendant of Claude Monet somehow, if it's not sure by blood, but still.
The curiosity of the sort of joy and sadness of this place is at the moment of the funeral, the President of the Republic, Clemenceau, is here. And of course he realizes that the tomb, actually the coffin of Claude Monet is covered by black color. He just died.
Yeah, black fabric. Like you would do back then, it's a color of grief and...
So, grieving, and there's a problem, is he just died. And Clemenceau just removes it and goes no black. Because no black color for Claude Monet, because that's not him. It's not gonna be this.
Put some bright colors on it.
He replaced it by bright color, and this funeral happened here, so... There's even pictures here. There's of course the whole importance of Paris. The president is here during the funeral of Claude Monet. And the church, Sainte Radegonde.
How did you call the church?
Sainte Radegonde.
Sainte Radegonde.
Yeah,
wow.
Those names that
it's
call you kids like this today.
Yeah, people will throw little rocks at them.
Wow.
There was one last tomb you wanted to show us.
Well, the last tomb, and actually the idea is we cannot forget that we're in Normandy.
Yeah.
And this, wherever you are in Normandy, the Normandy reminds you that you are in Normandy. And when we say the word Normandy, we think about D-Day.
Of course.
And this idea of D-Day is that it happens on the coast, but at the same time that it's happening on the coast, the day before and the day after, the days after, there is paratroopers that are being parachuted all over Normandy to cut the German supplies, basically the supply line, so the battle can be won. And in all the villages, there is those tombs of fallen soldiers. So this is a Lancaster, the plane that literally fell here during. So in here you have the
British pilots
of June. British pilots, so you see them 20 years old, all of them, who were supposed to be here and to help basically
after the D-Day.
After D-Day, yeah, to help, who all were taken down by German guns, and they fell here and they're buried in the cemetery of Giverny.
Yeah, you're right. When you are in Normandy, there are very, very few places where you are not reminded the legacy and of the D-Day, of the Second World War, because the Battle of Normandy It's not just the day of D-Day, but it's actually 3 months between June and August of 1944, and probably we're going to do a special tour about this. Voila, we're getting to the end of this new tour. It was an amazing experience to be almost the only one. At some point we were the only one, and then there were 2-3 other people, so it was an amazing experience here
Even
in
there's
Giverny.
people from Giverny, they start speaking with us, you know, like going like a,
the
hello,
staff
how are you?
asking questions, giving us information,
Giving us
etc.
fruits
I
and
think
stuff.
they may be a little bit bored, actually, because in the middle of the week there is absolutely no one, and it makes this year a little bit more
Strange,
pleasant at the same time.
Strange and pleasant, yeah.
Strange because obviously we can't do the tours we love in real life, but pleasant. We found a way to share our passion, our favorite sites with all of you every week. We are going to film some more tours as long as the weather stays rather okay, as long as we are allowed also to go out and freely walk, etc. This was a new tour from My Private Paris, this boutique travel agency specialized in tours in Paris and around, like Giverny. Merci Olek, one of the first guide who joined our team some 5 years ago.
Yeah.
It was really cool to spend this time with you today. I forced you to do this very hard job. And hopefully we will see you soon. If you like these tours, there are a few things that matter really for us. The first one is to subscribe to the channel. This is important for us. When we reach 1,000 subscribers, we will have way more features with YouTube, so we will be able to do live tours again. You can like the video, share it with your friends, talk about us, support us this way. Of course, if you don't mind, you can also tip your guides. There's a link, a PayPal link right down this video. And the most important is really to share it with friends. We are so happy to bring you these tours, this site.
Yeah, we'll continue. We'll continue about this.
So we'll keep doing it for as long as you guys enjoy these tours. So thank you once again very much. This was our first tour in Normandy. We are going to film more because there are the D-Day sites. There's also the beautiful city of Rouen. There are tons of things to see here in Normandy, but also in the rest of France. So we will be back pretty soon. Au revoir.
Bye.
Merci beaucoup.
Bye, au revoir.